What happens when a desperate thief steps into a quiet store, unaware that the man behind the counter has faced far worse than a loaded gun? The neon sign buzzed faintly above the corner store, casting a flickering red glow across the cracked pavement. It was past midnight in a forgotten part of town, where the streets whispered trouble and the air smelled of stale cigarettes. The store, a small beacon of light in the darkness, stood alone, its shelves stocked with cheap snacks and dusty cans. Behind the counter, James Carter leaned back in his chair, his calloused hands flipping through a worn paperback. To anyone passing by, he was just another cashier, unremarkable, blending into the humdrum of the night shift. But James was no ordinary man. His past was etched in scars and medals, earned in deserts and jungles where survival demanded more than courage. The bell above the door jingled, sharp and sudden. James glanced up, his instincts waking before his eyes caught the figure. A young man, barely 20, shuffled in, his hoodie pulled low, hands stuffed deep in his pockets. The kid's eyes darted nervously, scanning the store, lingering on the empty aisles. James knew the look, fear mixed with desperation. He'd seen it in war zones, in the faces of men pushed to their breaking point. "Can I help you?" James asked, his voice steady, low, like a calm before a storm. The kid froze, then forced a grin, too wide, too shaky. "Just, looking," he muttered, moving toward the back. James watched him in the convex mirror above the counter, noting the way the kid's hand twitched inside his pocket. Trouble was coming. He could feel it, the same way he'd felt an ambush in the heat of a foreign night. Minutes passed. The kid circled back, his steps quicker now, his face slick with sweat. He stopped at the counter, pulling his hand from his pocket to reveal a cheap pistol, its barrel trembling. "Empty the register," he hissed, voice cracking. "Now, don't make me shoot." James didn't flinch. His eyes locked onto the kid's, reading the fear, the hunger, the story of a life gone wrong. "You sure about this?" he asked, his tone almost gentle, like a father questioning a child's bad choice. "Shut up. Open the damn register." The kid's voice rose, the gun shaking harder. James moved slowly, deliberately, his hands visible. He'd faced worse RPGs screaming overhead, knives glinting in close quarters. A scared kid with a shaky gun was no match for the hell he'd survived. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was a kid, lost, broken, standing on the edge of a choice that could ruin him. "All right," James said, popping the register open. The drawer clanged, revealing a meager stack of bills. "Take it, but you don't have to do this." The kid lunged forward, snatching the cash, his eyes wild. "You don't know me. You don't know what I need." "I know you're scared," James said, stepping out from behind the counter, hands still raised. "I know you're not a killer. Not yet." The kid's face twisted, anger and shame warring in his eyes. He jabbed the gun forward. "Back off, old man." James didn't back off. He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a quiet intensity. "I've seen men like you. Young, angry, thinking there's no way out. But there is. Put the gun down. Walk away. You're better than this." The kid laughed, a brittle, hollow sound. "You don't get it. I got nothing. This," he waved the gun. "This is all I got." James saw the moment, the flicker of doubt in the kid's eyes. He moved, faster than the kid could react, his hand closing over the gun, twisting it free in one fluid motion. The kid stumbled back, eyes wide with shock, as James emptied the clip and tossed the weapon aside. "You're not nothing," James said, his voice firm but not cruel. "You're alive. That's enough to start over." The kid collapsed against the counter, his bravado gone, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't want this," he choked out. I needed the money. For my sister. She's sick." James exhaled, the weight of the kid's words settling on him. He'd heard stories like this before, in war and in peace, people pushed to the edge by a world that didn't care. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a crumpled 20, all he had from his own paycheck. "Take this," he said, pressing it into the kid's hand. "Get her what she needs tonight. Tomorrow, you come back. I'll help you find a job. A real one." The kid stared at the bill, then at James, his mouth trembling. "Why? Why would you help me?" "Because I've been where you are," James said softly. "Not with a gun, but lost. Thinking there's no way out. Someone gave me a chance once. I'm giving you one now." The kid nodded, wiping his eyes, and stumbled out into the night, the 20 clutched tight. James watched him go, the bell jingling softly as the door swung shut. He picked up the empty gun, tucking it behind the counter, and returned to his paperback. The neon sign buzzed on, the world outside unchanged. But inside, something had shifted. A life had been pulled back from the brink, not by force, but by a choice to see the human behind the gun, to offer hope where despair had taken root. James Carter, decorated combat veteran, wasn't just a cashier. He was a man who knew the cost of war and the value of mercy. And in that quiet store, on a forgotten street, he'd fought a different kind of battle, one that saved a soul instead of taking one.